Imagine, you're standing in front of a group of white men as sums of money are being shouted out all around you. You can't understand what anyone is saying until the man in front yells, "Sold!" You look around and you're really confused, and then you're the one being shuffled to another white man in the crowd who looks at you and smiles and says, "You're my property now." Howdy, my name is Brooke Williams, and I will be providing some information to you about the Civil War. I've done some research and tried to gain some more knowledge about a war that we've all heard about in our history classes at least once. The Civil War was a time in our country where we the people were really hateful and segregated, and to ensure that we never enter a period like that again, we need to understand how the war came to be, what happened during the war, and how we've amended from it. Before the Civil War came to be, we must first look at how America was before. There was unrest over decisions between the northern states and the southern states due to differences in economy and morals. As Jennifer L. Weber states in her article in Britannica in 2005, industrialization had taken root in the North, and the South's economy was predominantly plantations that produced commercial crops such as cotton that relied on slaves as the main labor source. Meaning the North was moving on towards industrialization and technology, while the South was still stuck in plantations and farming and relied on the cotton that money made. With additional states like Missouri, which was in favor of slavery, seeking statehood into the United States, the North fought in countless debates, which eventually led to the Missouri Compromise of 1820. This compromise, however, did not relieve the fighting between anti-slave Northerners and slave-owning Southerners, and it grew every single day. Eventually, the Confederacy was born and the 7 slave states seceded into the United States. They called themselves a new nation, the Confederate States of America, as James McPherson wrote in a brief overview of the American Civil War in November 2008. This was due to President Abraham Lincoln, an anti-slave Republican, coming into office that made these 7 states secede, says Weber. The unrest between the North and the South seceding the nation altogether, was a recipe for disaster, and it was only a matter of time before the other shoe dropped and the nation was engulfed in death. Fort Sumter was one of 2 forts under the federal jurisdiction, and the Confederacy demanded that it be evacuated in order to take it for their own. When this didn't occur, the Confederate soldiers fired upon Fort Sumter and started the Civil War on April 12, 1861, says McPherson. Huge battles such as Shiloh in Tennessee, Fredericksburg in Virginia, Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, and many more led to countless deaths and heartache around the nation. After 4 years of war, death, and carnage, in the spring of 1865, all Confederate armies surrendered, and when the Union cavalry captured the fleeing Confederate President, Jefferson Davis, in Georgia on May 10, 1865, resistance collapsed and the war ended, stated McPherson. The Civil War had many deaths and the country in turmoil for 4 years, but over the controversial idea of slavery. And after many years of suffering, it looked like it would turn for the better. Post-Civil War definitely was hard, and it took some work to rebuild the nation, but eventually it was achieved. The United States went to war in 1861 to preserve the Union. It emerged the war in 1865 and created a nation, says James M. McPherson in Out of War, A New Nation in spring 2010. Today, as we no longer have an outright slave-driven economy, it's thanks to the Union who fought valiantly to protect the rights of those who were deemed as nothing and objects up for auction. Had the Confederacy prevailed in the 1860s, the United States might have never emerged as the world's largest economy and foremost democracy by the late 19th century, says McPherson in Out of War, A New Nation. Lincoln's goal was to always win the war, whether that be to unite the nation or completely wipe out the South and provide a stronger Union. President Lincoln stated in his famous Gettysburg Address the use of the word nation as a whole, referring to the birth of a new united nation, the United States of America. The Civil War is not a pretty time in the United States history, and it certainly is not the most fun thing to talk about, but without the Civil War, slavery might still be rampant today, as it was back then, and our united nation would not offer the freedoms that many travel to seek here today. In conclusion, the Civil War is a dark time in the United States history, but it must be talked about, and it needs to be taught and researched to never repeat it. Owning people as property is not an ideal that the United States upholds today, and it's a reason that our country is so diverse and a melting pot of different skin colors and ethnicities. Going out into a city and seeing so many colors can be exciting, refreshing, and one can learn so many things from someone so different from us. Seeing the differences in our country and understanding the sacrifices it took for that to become a new familiarity, seeing the colors and understanding what it took to create that canvas in the first place, and most of all, interact with those different from you because in a very different world, it may not have been possible at all.